Now, with the news of Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big Ten, how does that affect these other teams? Because it's not like you're losing one of your top teams, or maybe you're losing a team and they're just, they happen to be in a geographic sweet spot. You're losing your top two biggest names. Oklahoma, obviously, top 5 program, your biggest brand. Texas maybe hasn't had the success that their brand would make you think. I mean, Texas football, huge brand, huge name recognition, a lot of money. They haven't been winning championships. They've won games, don't get me wrong, but they're not winning championships. But you're losing them. And those were the two, for your conference to be viable, you got to have those big brand names. And now they're gone. Now you have an 8-team conference. Iowa State is a tremendous, good football team, top 10 football team for next year. But it doesn't have that name recognition, doesn't have that brand. You got, Oklahoma State's had success. You've got Baylor that's been up and down. These aren't your marquee teams. These aren't the teams that you're going to say, okay, we'll just go 8, we'll bring in somebody else, and we'll be good. It doesn't work that way. And I think we're seeing the dying days of the Big 12 Conference. So what do they do? What do these teams do? Well, at this point, it looks like, I think, Kansas more than likely is going to be going to the Big 10. The Big 10 is saying, okay, we've got to expand too. We can't stand pat at our 14 while they're getting Texas and Oklahoma and go there. And so they're going to look to expand. And the 3 names that you're hearing are Kansas, Iowa State, and Oklahoma. And those aren't as big a names, or Oklahoma State, I should say. Those aren't as big a names as Oklahoma and Texas. But for the Big Ten, I think, Kansas is a good fit. Academically, they're a good fit, and they've got the Kansas basketball team. And the Big Ten, as much as they are a football conference, they still care a lot about college basketball. And getting Kansas and Kansas basketball into the Big Ten would be a huge get for that conference. Iowa State, as long as Matt Campbell stays there, that's a tremendous, tremendous get. But you have to worry if Campbell leaves, where would he leave to? Who knows? But that's you're getting a top 10 program there. So, but those are the teams that you're hearing. What about the West Virginias? What about the Kansas States, the Texas schools? You're not hearing a whole lot about those. West Virginia wants to go to the ACC. But does the ACC want to bring in West Virginia? Does that bring in what they're looking for? Okay. You're looking at the conference, maybe they stand pat, but where are they going to get teams from? You're not going to go and raid a team from the ACC. No one's going to want to leave the ACC to go to the Big 12. Would a team leave the Pac-12? I've heard, that the Pac-12 could go out and get they should make a play for the 2 Arizona schools and say, hey, bring you in a little bit more Southwest. You can fit in with the Texas Techs and that. But if you're Arizona State and in Arizona, do you really want to leave the Pac-12, who's not making a ton of money, for a conference who could be folding up? And that should be interesting. Would the Pac-12 want to take those Texas schools? I don't know. I think the team, I think if I'm a Kansas State, I'm terrified. What are they going to do? Are they going to go to the Mountain West? Are you going to go to Conference USA? I guess your best hope at this point is to go to the AAC. And that's a big, not a big step down, because some of those AAC teams are pretty solid. But what's going to happen to these programs? And that should be fascinating to see. You don't hear Kansas State going to the Big 12 or Big 10. You don't hear them going, an ACC wanting them. Would the ACC pick up TCU and Texas Tech and Baylor to kind of, add in? Does those schools, do they try to raid the AAC and get a Houston, get a Cincinnati, and see if that can bump those schools up? But once again, if you're Cincinnati, would you say, do I want to go to this conference, or do I feel confident staying in the ACC, maybe a little bit closer to where they're at? So that should be fascinating to see what they do. Heck, there's talk of the Big Ten expanding out west and pulling in a UCLA and USC and Colorado and that, and along with Kansas and, potentially Iowa State. It kind of looked like college football realignment was something that wasn't going to happen for a while, especially with these huge grants of rights deal. The ACC had to pay like $50 million to get out of theirs. It's happening now, and college football is going to be changing. And if the SEC goes up to 2024 teams, you know that the Big Ten's going to want to do that. Where does Notre Dame fit in it? The Big Ten would love to get Notre Dame, but Notre Dame seems pretty comfortable with the ACC. So college football is going to get turned on its head soon. Are we getting closer and closer now that NIL's out there to getting rid of the NCAA and having these teams kind of govern themselves? And the SEC has their 20 to 24 teams. Whoever wins theirs gets entered in with the Big Ten, who expands, and like I said, I've said it several times already. It's going to be fascinating to see. I can't wait to see what happens. And heck, even Ohio State and Michigan potentially could be going down in the SEC. That would be crazy that a team would leave. You don't think, hey, the Big Ten is right up there with the SEC in terms of money, but those schools potentially are flirting with the idea of going down. So if that happens, what's going to happen to the Big Ten, and so on and so forth.